Armada book for Chapter 6 The Shoppers Part 1. Roden and Gantley beamed into Vicky's backyard. Earlier, Byneton beamed in with Tonin and Godenon. Gadden and Gilkin beamed in right after Roden. Then Santos, Santiago and Tommy beamed in. Timmy and Julia beams in and they both went into the house. Roden and Gantley were wearing the generic Inky mummy-like clothing. Gadden and Gilkin were in their more formal wear. Okay, so you are all seem to be going someplace other than this meeting. Andrew said. So let me get this straight, you believe there are spies in our midst? Roden said. The Macs saw their faces in the minds of the Rotnamies. These guys sold the technology. I believe that what they saw were images. They were most probably are using our usual chameleon devices while in the act of selling to the Rotnamies. Andrew said. It could not have been a Norset because we have no desire for money or the benefits of money. In fact, we have no desire for gold or diamonds as the Rotnamies get paid with. We can simply make gold or diamonds from anything else. Byneton explained. Gadden added, it could not have been Max because we would know immediately through the collective. You do know that we have people looking at the collective and who actually tell us what they see as strange or anomalous. So it's either human or Inky. Gantley said. I think it's Armada people. Andrew said. Wait, if a Mac closes his mind to the collective, then the collective would not have his experience. Roden said. True, but if one closes his mind and he's just around, we would not know until he opens up again. Once open, we may be able to get it. Gadden said. May is the word. And then you may not get it? Olive, would the Marantais have access to an old ship? Andrew asked. Olive appeared. No, not at the time frame we are looking at. Explain. Andrew, the Macaries got the technology from the Rotnamies based on the readings the Macs did. And they got them anywhere from 18 months to 22 months ago. Judging from the technology transferred, they could have gotten the scanning from a very old Vinta or an old Norset backup group. Remember, we found a Norset group and they are missing 2 ships. Based on the data systems, one ship was cannibalized for a variety of purposes. Another was dismantled, but no information existed as to what it was used for. The Marantais were nowhere near these events, and in the time periods these events occurred. They got their ships much later on. So it could be that the Rotnamies made the Norset backup group dismantle the ship and they got the ship. That is plausible, but why do they have a plasma type of gun? Tonin asked. I think the Macaries got that somewhere else. The Norset backup does not have those plasma guns, that is why the Rotnamies have a laser plasma variant. Andrew said. The plasma cannons that we have are not very secure as we have them on the ground and remotely controlled. A group can easily scan it or even approach it and study it in detail. Gadden said. What about the TPs? I thought the programming of the TPs would never be hacked. Ellie asked. They have the old TPs that were made more than 100 years ago and have no connection to ships. These older TPs are either controlled by Max or they can be reprogrammed to beam somebody at a location, but the location must be entered in first and so they are slower to deploy. Gadden said. They could have stolen them from the Hops ships equipped with these old TPs. The newer ones are automatic and connected to a Norset communication system which can then be controlled by a ship or the Hops ship computers. Unless you are a Bwofeng, Mac or Norset, it would be very hard if not impossible to hack into these ships. Like hacking into Olive. Tonin said. Olive commented, it would not be likely that a ship may have been hacked. Tonin is correct. The Hops ships are being converted to real estate that various species rent for transport and travel purposes. They have their own TPs which were pre-programmed for them to use exclusively. Olive, how secure are these? Ellie asked. They are still very secure as they use the owner's security settings. If one moves them out of the Hop ship, they will not work because their placement and location among the other TPs is part of their security features. Reprogramming the TP would not be possible unless they have several Macs who have experience with this type of work. This is something that is not only engaging but very hard to understand and do. Even if the TPs are manually controlled, they could still be effective in infiltration operations. Andrew said. Roden nodded, I agree. Maybe we need a new approach to this problem. I will create a group with Santiago, Santos and Tommy here to study the vulnerabilities and possible reinforcement of security in all our Hops and TPs. Godenon said. Byneton added, we should always protect our technology from our potential enemies so we would always have a solid advantage. We may not be able to find out who sold the technologies. But once we see our enemies have them, the idea is to isolate them in their own solar systems. Then we have to guard them from selling the technology they already have to others who may turn against us. Tonin said. Something which is almost impossible to do. Andrew said. Unless you have spies on the ground. Gadden said. It would be one of the hardest jobs for a spy to do. And it could take years. Roden said. Gilkin countered, it's not really that hard to do, although it may take years. A lot of capable Macs would jump on the opportunity if you present it to them. I will send the word out. Gadden said. What if we read the minds of the Rotnami scientists? I am sure they are the first people to get hold of the technology before they are even made use of. Ellie said. I agree. We have the information on the scientists, we can send some mind readers to the ship guarding the planets. Gantley said. Go ahead and do that. I believe this problem will be a persistent one, and to have people on the ground looking around is a good long-running measure to help us eventually handle or solve this. Andrew said. One of the things I want to talk to you about, Andrew, and Roden, it's good you're here, is that we have, I believe, overexpanded the sphere we have. More than we can effectively manage. Byneton said. The universe is really a big place. Andrew said. I believe I understand Byneton's concerns. Take Eric, he traveled almost 1 BLY away from the pirates to deliver a never-before-encountered alien species called Krintellus to their planet. While these are all good developments, I believe events are happening very quickly. Faster than we can adopt a more efficient and proper response for. Roden said. I understand, Roden. It's really a Wild West out there. We do what we have to do. But then again, we are already spreading ourselves very thinly. And if you did not notice, I have people deployed all over the place doing things for all the aliens we have under our sphere, which have effectively increased in size by a factor of 8. This was not in our plans when we set out. Andrew said. Vicky and Elaine brought the food and wines out for the group. After greeting the backyard guests, they set the food and wines on the table. Timmy, Julia and Danny were following them from behind and carried pasta and some meats to barbecue. Tommy, Santiago and Danny took over the meats to grill. By the way, those Krintellus provided us with a lot of information on how species can regenerate. Focusing at the topic at hand, if you look at the expanded sphere, there are thousands of very large areas which we have not explored, and in these areas we really are in the dark. I think that part on how we can manage the sphere is to run a fleet of exploration ships to go to these areas so we would know what our backyard holds. Ellie said. Andrew and Roden moved to get some wine bottles to open. Tonin got 2 bottles and 4 glasses and moved over to the grilling team. The others did not seem to mind. Elaine suggested, why not use the kids to explore the nearer exoplanets? Under an Armada officer, they can use the old Vintas to go down and hone their skills doing whatever. I like that. He looked at Vicky. Andrew said. Vicky commented, sure, simple data gathering can spark major breakthroughs. Olive, can you tell Manpat and Junie to come over, please? Andrew said. Manpat would have the manpower to do exploration work. Junie would provide assistance, but we need Max, Norsets and Inkeys to lead the science part of exploration. Olive, how many Vintas are available to us to use as exploration ships? Roden asked. 718, but some of them need to be reconditioned as they have not been used for several months, some years. Reconditioned into science ships to do exploration work, if I may add. Ellie said. The idea is to gather data and not really explore unless there is a compelling reason to. The area is really big, and a general view of the lay of the land may be the first thing we would do, and a hard-nosed exploration and research later on. Vicky said. I will tell my commanders to bring them over to a staging area near Junie's planet, since it's right in the middle and because most of them are all over the place. Gantley said. I can assign 500 Norset scientists per ship. That would be 2 or 3 experienced ones, and the rest are new scientists. We just need to refurbish their data systems to use the latest ones. I don't want scientists complaining, especially when they are used to the latest in technologies. And I will talk to the Bofings. I know they would not want to be left out on anything we do. Godnan said. I think we need at least 1,200 scientists per ship. I can assign another 500, Gilkin, maybe you can take care of the 200 per ship. These may not at all be the very experienced ones, Roden said. Sure, that can be arranged. Gilkin said. We would have to get to those areas within beaming range of our hop ships first. Gantley commented. They would have to operate in groups of 10 ships for security reasons. Tonin said. Absolutely, for security and logistical reasons. Andrew said. We need to outfit at least one of the 10 ships with mining TPs and deep ground scanners. Ellie said. I believe we have those in stock. I remember we have 10 times the required number in stock. I can send some people to install them once Gantley brings them all at Junie's. Byneton said. The kids can also work refurbishing, remodeling and making the ship a real science ship. I guess I can send the needed logistics for remodeling and refurbishing. Roden said. Great. Who would take the lead on this project? Andrew asked. Assign this to a group of kids. Ellie answered. Of course, Good idea, Ellie. Andrew said. Linda and Lachine beams in with Eric. It seems you guys smelled the steaks. Andrew exclaimed. Ellie and I would take Lachine shopping on Earth, sir. Linda said. Of course steaks will not hurt. Eric added. Edna, Maria, and Liz beams in. Ellie ran over to hug them. Vicky and Elaine moved back to the house to get the veggies for the vegetarians. Speaking of shopping, our people are now into fashion pretty much like you humans on Earth. We have very good designs and the materials can only be found in the Inky galaxies. Ask Maria, she's buying so much from 2 planets, and that shows how good our products are. Roden said. They looked at Maria. The materials are good and sturdy but the designs need some improvement with some species. I guess it's a matter of taste. Their products have a very large market, you just need to know where to sell them. Maria said. Wait a minute, our clothing industries are top rate too. We even have French designers working with us. I think you should be looking at our products first, Maria. Gilkin said. We already have Ambassador Gilkin. In fact, our first shipment has gone out last week. Liz said. The market is large and your designs can be sold to the new human planets. It just takes some time to get things working. With our own TP lines, we would be able to buy from you more. But we did ship last week. Edna said. The currency exchange you started, Edna, has grown so much we are moving them to its own city. Gilkin said. City? Edna asked. There are more than 3.8 million Max and other species working on the currency exchange. The revenues from processing fees alone can support 10 cities. It's really one profitable industry. Gilkin said. Wow, that is a large operation. It's like a while ago we were just talking about it, now it has almost 4 million people working for it. Roden said. Gilkin gave the thumbs up to Edna. Harold, Daisy and Albert beamed in. I heard the gang's all here. Albert exclaimed. So Harold, you're the new president? Roden asked. Not yet. Harold said as Roden shook his hand. Junie and Manpat beams in with Sarudam. They brought some brandy and wine. Ellie gathered the newcomers and explained in detail what has been talked about and the action plans. So Manpat, we need your people, and Junie, we need your people as well. And Mr. President, 100 or so Marines per ships would help a lot. How many Talonauts do you need per ship? Manpat asked. Ellie answered, 1,000 per ship, 200 military, 300 crew and 500 scientists. And you, Junie, at least, 500 per ship, half crew half scientists. I can arrange that. Manpat said. Sure, who is in charge? Junie asked. Some groups of kids will be assigned to spearhead the project. Mom, will you do the assigning? Sure, honey. Elaine said. Manpat approached Maria. Maria, I understand you showed some of my people around your university planet and I decided to have 3 of our planets start a massive re-education program. I would like to duplicate what you did. I can send my people to your people so they can help them start the project right away. Sarudam added, they also would like to do the programs you have in the planet university. Sure, we would be very happy to do this for you. In fact, we have started to develop several teams of a few hundred each to establish the same concepts in the new human planets, including Junie, so you can be sure we can be there as early as possible to start this thing off for you. One caveat is that we have to use our data systems, which holds all the technology and information available to all of us, and your people would have to do some translation. Manpat added, we also would like to develop the vehicle industry for several planets. I also have teams doing just that in all the new human planets. But you would have to have the infrastructure and manpower support to start this off. And we should have a small stake in all those ventures. Albert added. With the corresponding money, of course. Edna said. That's expected. I will look for the best in this field. I am sure I would get thousands. Remember, we have the metal moon, so we have a lot of industrial space. Once we have one going, we can establish the industry in the other planets. Manpat said. I will get my people to work on it right away. Maria said. Don't we have to talk about your fees first? Sarudam asked. No, everything's free on the university and car program. I want to remind you that our university is free for all who want to study. Students do not pay anything and they can study whatever they want for up to 30 years. Our graduates become the leaders of their line of work and we know them. We make money when we have goodwill. Also, in the car program, when we start producing, we get some money based on our share of the new enterprise that was based on the actual investment money we put in. But everything before this, training, logistics and all, are all free. That's good business, Maria. Manpat said. Maria held Manpat's shoulder. It's not like we are talking about 10 years. We are here forever. Sarudam laughed as he glanced at Vicky talking to Gilkin, Gotanen and Binaton. See those guys, those are the guys you should be talking to. Our university works well because we have Mac and Norset teachers. Some can do one-on-one, which is really the best way, but the students are pressed for time to learn a lot. Manpat, all you have to do is ask and I am sure they will give you thousands. Maria said. Manpat nodded and approached Vicky's group. Manpat works hard for his people. Come on, let's give him a hand. Maria commented. Yes, he does. It's what drives him sometimes. But now it's mostly Armada work. Sarudam said. Maria walked right into the middle of the group. We were talking of establishing a university like what we have at the Planet University for a massive re-education of the Talonot populace. And you would need Norset teachers. Binatan said. I was thinking maybe 50,000, I am sending 20,000 of my people to start. Manpat was surprised at Maria's brazen request. That's too small considering their population. I think 100,000 is a good starting number, and if the Norsets find out that they need more, we will send more. Godanan said. Manpat realized it was not brazen at all. I think 120,000 for your population size is too small. But it would be a start. Let me call Gilkin over. Vicky said. She walked over to Gilkin and pulled his hand and guided him to the group. Maria is establishing a university with the Talonots and they need teachers. Binatan said. They would probably need 200,000 for their population at the very least. Gilkin said. Binatan promised 100,000, I am willing to send 20,000. Maybe you can fill in 80,000 to round the number up. Maria said. Sure, 80,000 is a bit small for us. But if you need more, just tell me. Gilkin said. How about the infrastructure, Manpat? Godanan asked. We have the metal moon. We would just need to rearrange some walls and install the best data systems. All the other logistics and other equipment I will provide. I think that would work. At this point all the other aliens must have this opportunity as well. Like the Dugnogs, the Krintellis, and so on. Vicky said. I can have another part of the moon for those alien groups near our galaxy. But I want to start off on our people first and see what's best, then move to the other species. Manpat said. That's logical. That's what's happening at Portland right now. Vicky said. I can set up another city for all the other aliens on our side of the galaxies. Maria said. I think you should, Manpat. You also must develop a long-term program for all the species. And don't worry, Maria, I will always support you. Binatan said. Thank you, sir. She gave Manpat the thumbs-up sign. Manpat smiled. Maria made it look too easy. Manpat thought. Danny announced, the steaks are ready. You have a choice of beef, chicken, and fish. The people started to move around, some looking for something to be able to start eating. Olive beamed a lot of plates and utensils in various places because everybody seemed to be looking for some other thing. Then she beamed in some ice cream and brandy. Roden sat beside Andrew. You know, Andrew, meeting like this really removes tension and stress. I am going to relocate my office with one that has an open area like this one. Roden, as you always say, it's the thought that counts. Sure. Binatan moved over to a chair across Andrew and Roden. I read your development of drone probes in the field and how you use them, and I was toying with the idea of creating a grid of drone probes, say 3 or maybe even 5 BLY away from our sphere. That would be a good early warning device. Cheaper too, Roden said. Ellie, come over here please. Andrew waved Ellie over. Ellie made a few steps to be behind Roden. Binatan called Godanan over also, then he explained himself again. Vicky walked over and stood behind Binatan. Binatan repeated what he said. We have been working on the probes to make them more effective. What we realized in the battlefield was that we need them to be able to deploy smaller probes and get them back and redeploy again. Then we need to have more scanning equipment and reprogram the whole probe to function more effectively as a real drone probe. For example, it needs the long-range finder to make sure it stays in place relative to the stars around it. They have to be fully independent and should last a long time, like 500 years. So you have been working on this project, but how are you going along? Binatan asked. Godanan answered, I was actually involved recently by Ellie, and I believe we are in the final phase of deciding which equipment goes into the probe since we are limited by the size, and the reprogramming will be done later. But the work of the programming has already begun, so once we are done with the equipment the programs would be loaded in a few days. Ellie added, we are also finalizing the prototype of an N drone probe which is twice the size of the regular drone probe, but this one has more scanning and communications equipment and so on. The idea is to leave it somewhere permanently. Like a listening post. We can divide the Armada into 8 representing the 8 sides around our sphere, then we can all move into a loop pattern like this and deploy the probes into a grid 80 MLY from each other, say 2 or 3 layers. Andrew said. Why not just fly straight like this in a grid pattern? Roden asked. Looping looks more dramatic. And besides, it's not flat. It's more like a matrix around and not exactly round. Andrew said. You must need millions of drone probes. Brad, can you calculate the number of probes we would need of one layer at 80 mly apart? Vicky asked. Brad appeared. That would be 6.67 million, give or take 1 million depending on the vantage point. Like the Crintellis are really way out of the sphere. I was afraid of that. Ellie said. So much for a grid pattern. Roden added. We can deploy a straight line instead. Say from the Crintellis, for 3 bly we drop off a probe every 80 mly. The next line would be near the Bourbons, then near the Baofengs and so on. Andrew said. I understand. I think that would work also to see what's out there. Then we'll put the probe outpost at the end of the line. Godenon said. How long would you take to finish your work, Ellie? Roden asked. Ellie looked at Godenon. Maybe a month. I could never get tired of the steak. This is from the Aussies, right, honey? Andrew asked. Yes, they deliver them to me when I call. I guess we have time to reorganize the Armada. Our people have been depleted, reassigned, transferred, and borrowed. I have to get them all back. He looked at Roden.